The only thing that I have is my optimism and hope for a better future. And I've had a chance to visit your classroom, and I know that you are giving your students information that will change the way they go into business. When they go into the workforce, they will see things differently. And I'm wondering if you're getting that feeling or understanding that um, the next generations will see life differently. They are not going to be comfortable living off the backs of other people. And so, would you speak to a little bit about what you're seeing in the classroom as a professor at Georgia Tech, or professor, a researcher, a writer, and a student to coffee? What are you what are you hopeful of or seeing as you tell sort of a different story to your students?
Yeah, I feel like every time I'm in a class, this is my second semester, so teaching the class with a focus on the coffee industry. And I'm creating new materials based off of some archival work. I got a small grant to support some student workers to come and help with archival research and things like that to kind of use the specialty coffee industry and the coffee industry as a whole as like a context to understand work equity and wellness. And every time I'm in the class, we're getting ready to do like our first experiential exercise based off of this, and I'm going to send it to you all so you all can see it and give me your feedback too, the PowerPoint slides. I'm always like, I'm like, I feel like I'm learning right at the same time as the students are about like, oh, maybe I can do this other thing that's like a part of my work differently based off of what I'm seeing in the coffee industry. So for example, the entire class is focused on like how do we do sustained equity work? Like how do we do the work of creating sustained equity and at the same time sustain ourselves in the process?
Mm. Mhm.
That's what's in.
And that's, I think, for me and for like the people I grew up around, and the people that I've been doing research projects with and studying, that's the challenge, is doing the work and sustaining ourselves at the same time. And so what we first start out with doing is learning like key words and definitions around, kind of like we did last year at the SCA. What does diversity actually mean, and what are the outcomes associated with it? Same thing with equity, same thing with inclusion, et cetera, et cetera. And we also talk about the history, like learning the history of the industry that we're in, that we're working in. And so our first exercise is kind of doing that within specialty coffee, like looking at a range of specialty coffee companies and seeing like, what are their what is their focus? Is it D? Is it E? Is it I? Is it J? Is it R? Is it B? How do they do it? How do they do it?
And all of those stand for justice, belonging, yeah,
Respect,
respect,
diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, respect, belonging, right?
yeah.
And these are so many of the terms that we hear, but oftentimes we don't really know, like some of those terms aren't really in alignment with each other. Like somebody might want equality and somebody might want equity. They're not the same thing.
Mhm.
Right.
Because for equity to happen, somebody ain't gonna get the same thing as somebody else, because you're
Mhm.
restoring history through and you're like addressing historical barriers. So that might mean somebody else gets an additional resource to restore the barriers and to like reconstruct the barriers that are historical. Like, so we have to understand that equality and equity aren't the same thing. And that's how we can at first begin to do work together that's sustained equity. We have to understand like, what is our actual goal? Is it equity? Is it diversity? Is it respect? First, we need to understand that, and then we can, continue down the road